Good day, subscribers. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am Levi. This is the Cybersecurity Education channel. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day today. Today we're going to be talking about protecting yourself from ransomware. We're going to be talking about what is ransomware. We're going to be talking about how to prevent it and what can you do if you have ransomware. Protecting yourself from ransomware is extremely important because it will hopefully prevent yourself from losing your precious data. By watching this video, you will be able to help yourself prevent data loss from ransomware. What is ransomware? Basically, ransomware, it encrypts your drive, it encrypts the files that are on the drive. Depending on what type of ransomware it is, it'll encrypt the whole entire drive so that you can't access anything without a password to type in. Otherwise, it'll pick like certain files on your drive or certain folders that you won't be able to access. Basically, ransomware, the reason it has ransom in there is because you have to pay a fee to whoever distributed it to get that data off of the drive or from the folders that were encrypted. Sometimes it has a time limit on it. So they'll give you they'll have a countdown when you open up the file. It says, hey, you got to pay it within 24 hours, and then it just counts down. Other times there isn't any countdown at all. So it really depends on the type of ransomware. All right, so I had a little bit of a lighting problem in the middle of this video. The batteries on one of my lights died, and I had to do a workaround solution with a different light that plugs in, but it's not the same color as the other one. So hopefully this doesn't look too bad. We'll keep moving on here. So now we're going to talk about two famous major ransomware attacks. WannaCry is the first one. Basically that attack utilized SMBV1, server messaging block version 1, which is a file sharing protocol used on, normally it's on enterprise networks or business networks where you can share files via the network with that protocol. So basically what happened with this attack here is this attack happened in 2017, earlier in 2017, I believe in the May time period. There was a group that released a bunch of NSA documents that had an exploit for SMBV1, and Microsoft ended up releasing a patch for it. But a lot of organizations didn't apply that patch, or they had older operating systems. And so not much longer after that, there were rogue people that were using this to attack organizations' computers and devices and stuff like that. And it just took out like a ton of stuff. Or it caused ransomware on a bunch of things. As you can see, here's a list that I pulled up of the affected organizations. Some big ones, at least that I know of. Boeing was affected by this, FedEx was affected by this, and then Hitachi was affected by this as well. So these are kind of some of the major ones. Another major one that I found a bunch of articles on was National Health Service in New England. Down on this Wikipedia page a little bit, it talks about the National Health Service hospitals in England and Scotland were the hardest hit. Up to 70,000 devices, including computers, MRI scanners, blood stage freezers, etc., may have been affected. This just sounds terrible to me. Imagine being in a hospital and getting a procedure done, and then all of a sudden, the computer system goes down, and the nurses and the doctors and if you're in surgery or whatever, they can't get the information they need about you. What do they do? That's gotta be terrible. I don't know, maybe they can go back to paper or something, I don't know. But yeah, that's not good. And then I found this ZD.net article. It led up to 19,000 appointments to be canceled and an estimated cost of 100 million euros, which in a euro is worth more than a dollar, so it's at least $100 million plus. That's crazy. So this attack was called WannaCry. And I think it was called this because it makes the IT professionals in the organization want to cry and the users want to cry. Because if you get an attack like this, Generally something was done wrong in IT. Some security loophole was left open that should have been closed. So that's why I think it's called WannaCry. But yeah, basically during this attack, this protocol was used to spread the ransomware like massively open to devices and then just take them out so their files weren't able to be accessed on all these devices. And it caused a big problem for organizations. Next one is called NotPetya, and I forgot the A here. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm not for sure. That's what it looks like though. It should have an A at the end of it. NotPetya. Don't you love my wonderful writing? So the difference between this one and WannaCry is the goal was primarily destruction, whereas WannaCry was trying to get money out of these organizations. This thing would spread around, and it had ransomware as basically a cover. So there was like a $300 ransomware on top of it, but like the time limit was so short, like the decryption keys like were basically useless for it. So it was just used to massively spread and just destroy stuff, which is kind of terrible. It's the most devastating attack in ransomware history thus far, which, I mean, ransomware doesn't seem like it's been around too long, so we're probably going to see more in the future. It also used that SMV1 vector that WannaCry was using. Some of the major companies that were hit by this one were FedEx, Merck, a large pharmaceutical company, and Maersk. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. It was one of the world's largest shipping firms. So, I mean, it's caused a lot of problems. And then, according to CBSNews.com, it costed an estimated $10 billion to repair the damages from this attack. So, not really a good thing. All right, so these were examples of what ransomware can be like, particularly for large organizations. But this type of stuff can happen to you guys as well. And it's just as crappy as what happens to big organizations. I mean, it's never fun losing access to your files when you need one right away, like your family pictures or anything like that, stuff that you can't get back. So luckily at the organizations I worked at, I personally never saw an issue with ransomware. I did have some colleagues that had worked with a very few amount of people that saw ransomware, but it was very slim compared to the number of users that we've all worked with. So I take that as a testament to the security procedures that we had set up that I'm going to be showing you in this next section. All right, so how do you protect yourself from ransomware? The first thing is update your software and your operating systems. NotPetya and WannaCry, had those organizations did that, they would have been probably way better off and they wouldn't have got hit so hard. That was the biggest thing with them. Microsoft had a patch for it, and those organizations decided not to implement it. There was a CDNet article I found where that National Health Service hospital, they were warned ahead of time that something like this could potentially happen, and they needed to update all their computers and servers, and they didn't, and they got nailed. I'll post the link down in the description below. The other thing too is don't use non-supported software and operating systems. So in some of those cases too, I'm not sure if it was specifically that hospital or whatnot. It probably was, because in the research environments that I've worked in before, there's some systems that you can't update to a newer version. Basically, you don't want to use older operating systems. You don't want to use Windows XP. You don't want to use Windows Vista. And come January 2020, Windows 7 won't be supported, so you don't want to use that. Because if you're using an older operating system, there isn't patches available to fix vulnerabilities that can be hit with ransomware. So make sure that you're upgrading to something new. Like if you're on Windows 7 now, get up to Windows 10 before January of 2020, or you can be vulnerable to ransomware. And other things too. Keep your operating systems up to date. Don't use like old versions of Flash or old versions of Chrome. Like if you have an update, just press the update button to get it done. It's not worth getting ransomware or any other type of attack on your system. The biggest one up here that I would say probably causes the most ransomware and just the most overall problems in general. Don't open suspicious links and attachments. If you get an attachment from somebody and it's not something that you're expecting, just delete it or contact that person and see if they meant to send it to you. Also do simple things like check the email address and make sure like it's actually a legit email address. Sometimes those email addresses will be misspelled and they'll be like the wrong domain name. So if you worked at FedEx and you're expecting somebody from Pam at FedEx.com, and somebody created another website called FedEx, but it was spelled FDEX.com, and tried to trick you and sent you something, you might click on the email, or you might click on the link or click on the attachment because you thought it was from them when it actually wasn't. So just pay attention to stuff like that. Pay attention to the links in your emails too. Most of the time you can hover over a link and then see where it's going before you click on it. If it's some weird address, don't click on it. And don't open attachments that you're not supposed to be getting, okay? So that's probably the biggest one. Next one.
Don't download illegal content.
This day and age, there's really no point at all. I mean, a movie only costs... you got so many streaming services now for movies and music and games. I mean, Xbox Live has their own subscription service, like Origin, EA and Origin have their own subscription service. You got Spotify, you got Google Music, Apple Play, and I'm sure there's some type, and you got Netflix and Hulu and all that stuff now. There's just no point in downloading illegal content. You take a huge risk when you download illegal content because you don't know what's attached inside of there. Like, do they have ransomware in there? Do they have something in there that will go and steal your data and then use that against you? You just don't know, and it's really not worth it to get ransomware on it nowadays. Back in the day, I had a friend that would download illegal content back when we were kids, and the risk was just as great then. We didn't have to worry about ransomware though. That's a big deal. That's not worth wiping out your system for. And if you have kids or anything like that, you got to be aware of them downloading illegal stuff to you. And then also the legal costs of getting caught is just not worth it. I mean, there's so many different streaming services out there that are so cheap now. Just pay the money and do those. Don't bother with downloading illegally. Next one, only download applications from the original vendor. So if you want to download Adobe Flash or Java or something like that, go to the original vendor's website. Go to adobe.com, go to java.com. Don't do a Google search for it and just randomly go to some random file sharing website to get it. You don't know what people can inject in that. The next one is only download legit applications. If you're looking for a thing to edit PDFs and you find something that seems like it'll be great, but it's like it has some random name to it, it's not Adobe. Like, Adobe's the legit one, Adobe Pro. But you're like, yeah, I really don't want to pay for this. I'm going to try to find something cheaper. So you go and do a Google search and you're looking away and you're like, oh, this thing is so awesome. It's only like $5-10. But it's out of some random website in Russia and you never heard of it, and like there's no reviews on it or anything. Anything like that, it's probably not a good sign. Don't download that. Just pay the money for Adobe Pro. It's like $10 a month, so it's not worth the risk. It costs you a lot more to lose your data that you possibly might not get back, or to pay the ransomware, right? Remove apps that you don't use. So WannaCry and NotPetya, this SMB1 protocol, at least on the newer OS operating systems, that can be disabled. That was actually a security measure in my organizations that I was in to go and disable that. So that's just one example. Other applications like Flash, Adobe Acrobat, Java, those are all applications that websites use. Those are all applications that have a ton of vulnerabilities and are constantly getting hit with stuff all the time. If you don't need those applications, uninstall them on your system, get rid of them. It'll reduce your risk for ransomware. Make sure that you have an antivirus preferably for free ones, at least on Windows anyway, Windows Defender. Macs, I'm not sure what they have for free ones anymore. I haven't used a Mac in like 5 years, so. And then I highly recommend Silence. I used it in one of my organizations. It was really good at catching stuff. So the last thing we're going to talk about, what to do if you have ransomware. The number one thing that you can do, restore from backups. You get ransomware, you go and you wipe the drive and the OS before restoring. You go ahead, you're like, I have this backup already, I don't have to worry, I just wipe out my drive, put the backups back on, and you're back to working again. The only thing that you're wasting is your time then. You don't have to spend any extra money. That's the ideal situation. So with that, you really want to make sure that you have your backups up to date all the time, and you want them at 3 locations. You want one in the cloud, one offline, and then one in another spot that you can access. The important thing here is you want one that is not connected to your computer. You want it offline, like on an external drive in a safe or something. And the reason that you want that is because if you get ransomware and all your backup devices are connected to that computer, guess what? Those devices could get the ransomware on them, and then your backups are worthless. So that is the key thing. Backups, make sure to have them. And then if you have ransomware, do not pay the ransom. Because by paying, you're encouraging other ransomware developers to just keep sending it out and keep spreading it, right? And we want ransomware to go away because it's crappy. And if nobody pays, like, there's no incentive to put it out anymore, right? All right. And then the last option that you would have, so you don't have any backups and you don't want to pay the ransom, your last option is to wait for an organization to release the encryption key, the decryption keys. And I put encryption. Yeah, terrible speller, right? So there's several cases where months, years after, an organization will crack their encryption keys and they'll release them. You can do a search online for whatever type of ransomware you have, or like the file extensions, and see if there's any decryption keys for it. There's also a website by Kaspersky. It's called noransom.kaspersky.com. I'll post the link down below. So yeah, these are basically your only options. Like I said, highly recommend you have a backup. All right, so today we talked about ransomware, protecting yourself for it. We talked about what is it. It encrypts your drives and your files so that they're unusable, and you have to pay a fee to get that data back. We talked about how to prevent ransomware. Some of the main ones here were updating your software and operating systems, not opening suspicious links and attachments, always downloading apps from original vendor, always downloading legit apps, not illegally sharing apps wherever that one's at, or not illegally downloading stuff wherever that one's at on here, have an antivirus, and remove apps that you're not using, okay? And then finally, we talked about what to do if you do have ransomware. So, number one thing to remember here, always make sure to have 3 backups, right? So that way you can restore from them if you have it and you don't have to worry. Make sure to wipe the drive before you restore. Don't pay the ransom, and you can also wait for the release of any encryption keys if you don't need the data back immediately, if you can wait. So I hope you guys really enjoyed this content. If you like this content, click the subscribe button, click the like button on this video. I've been in the IT industry for the last 11 years. I have a CompTIA Security Plus certificate. I have a degree in computer science. I give cybersecurity lessons like this. I give cybersecurity tips and tricks. I talk about cybersecurity news and why it's important to you. I do cybersecurity labs on what can happen if you're not following cybersecurity standards, so you can see what bad things can happen to you if you don't. Thank you for watching, guys, and have a great day.